Act 2, Scene 4. This scene is more important than it probably seems. So let's summarize it first. Romeo finally reconnects with Mercutio and Benvolio after leaving them the night before. They give Romeo a hard time and tease him about getting with Rosaline. And Mercutio's like they're kind of joking with each other back and forth, and Mercutio's basically like, see, you're yourself again. That's what you needed. It's just a nice hookup. Then the nurse comes with Peter, finds Romeo, and gets the plans for their marriage later that day. Before that, this is very direct about what happens. There's an interaction between the nurse and Mercutio where Mercutio harasses her and it's hysterical, and then the nurse gets mad at Peter for not defending her, and Peter acts like, what are you talking about? Nobody was being mean to you. They're being honest. So anyway, there's a little piece of comedy right there. But here's what we learn. In the moments before Romeo reconnects with Mercutio and Benvolio, they are discussing the fact that Tybalt has sent a challenge to duel to Romeo because of the insult of Romeo appearing at the Capulet mansion at their party the night before. We also learn that Romeo and Juliet will be married by Friar Lawrence at church, and that Romeo will send a ladder to Capulet mansion for nurse to get ready so Romeo can climb into Juliet's window later that night. So let's say they're gonna go to church, like it's like, let's say timeline, it's 10 o'clock when she tells him this, or he tells her this information. It takes her an hour to get home. I don't know why it takes her 3 hours to get back. That's what Juliet says in the next scene. Maybe it's not really that long. But so let's say Juliet finds out by 12 that what's going to happen. So she probably then needs to be to church in the afternoon, right? 2 or 3. Then she'll go home to her house. Then the plan is that Romeo will have sent a serving man to meet up with the nurse with a ladder. And then the nurse will put the ladder in Juliet's room or like right on the balcony. And then late at night, Romeo will climb up the ladder, and then Juliet and Romeo will spend their first night together as husband and wife because they'll be officially married. That is like the plan that gets made in this scene. Okay, so who has sent Romeo a challenge for a duel? Tybalt, because he's really mad, right, that Romeo was at the Capulet mansion. Mercutio is like acting a fool in this scene, which is interesting considering what happens to him in Act 3. So he is a good study of double entendre, where we're using words that have we're using words for more than one of their meanings, and we're using it probably to make with sexual connotation. So we're looking at Act 2, and then after we talk about this, then we can add that to our discussion of Mercutio's character in this scene. So on line 57, Mercutio he's saying, you gave us the slip last night, right? You slipped away from us without, like, basically you lied to us. It's as much as to say such a case as yours constrains a man to bow in the hams, right? Like to bend your knees. Romeo takes that and says, oh, you mean like to curtsy? And then thou hast most kindly hit it, meaning the point that's being made, right? Mercutio is referring to something sexually inappropriate and to Romeo hitting Mercutio's meaning on the head, so to speak, right? Like, oh, you hit it right on the head. You got exactly what I meant. But he also, undertone, is talking about something sexually inappropriate in terms of like hit it, which is a term that's actually still very much used today. Romeo, because he's in a good mood, plays along with Mercutio in this scene. He says, a most courteous exposition, Mercutio. I'm the very pink of courtesy. Pink for flower. So kind of like teasing him, right? Like, oh, a feminine thing. Oh, you're like a little flower, like a feminine little flower. Mercutio is going to take it, right? Why then is my pump well flowered? If you look over here, a pump is a shoe and a flower is like an embellishment, right? Okay, so what they're sort of joking about is shoes and being very decorative and having decorative shoes, maybe even dainty shoes. But they're using the word pump and pink and flowered, and they use pump down here and hit it. And so all of these things are also the underlying jokes here. So pump refers to a man's private parts and also to a shoe. Mercutio says, for this driveling love is like a great natural that runs lolling up and down to hide his bauble in a hole. Bauble refers also to a man's private parts, but to like a little trinket or prize or valuable possession that this great natural is trying to hide in any hole that he can find. Which is right here at the top of this page. Then Mercutio says, thou desirest me to stop in my tail against the hair. Tail refers to a man's private parts, but also to, if you look the way that it's spelled, the story Mercutio is telling. All right, so we have this, and then we also have, I can't not go over this scene. So the nurse comes up and says, like, I desire some confidence with you. She means conference here, but she's not very educated, so she uses the wrong word. It's called malapropism. So Mercutio was going to make fun of her now, and then start singing this weird little song, and then tries to, like, get Romeo's attention on him. Like, are you coming to dinner? And Romeo's like, okay, yeah, I'll follow you. Like, get out of here. So then as he leaves, farewell, ancient lady. Farewell, lady, lady, lady. Oh, I'm sorry. It's before this, because the nurse is here. Right? Okay, so here the nurse enters, right? And they're kind of talking, and then they see the nurse is there. And so she asks Peter for her fan, and Mercutio says, good Peter, to hide her face, for her fans the fairer face, right? So like her fan is better looking than her actual face. Like, yes, Peter, give her the fan so that she can cover her face. Like, it's so rude. And she gets that. And then he then makes like this inappropriate comment to her, right? Like, what time is it? Or is it afternoon? 'Tis no less, I tell you, for the body hand of the dial is now upon the prick of noon, right? So body has like a sexual connotation, and then like prick has like a sexual connotation as well. So he's being completely inappropriate with her, which as a young man with a woman in society, he should have manners, especially during this time. But Mercutio kind of almost operates like above or outside of the law. I think that's because of his relationship with Prince, because that's like his cousin, his kinsman. So he kind of acts like he doesn't have to be appropriate. So what can we infer about Mercutio's character from his behavior in this scene? He is rude and crude and wants things to be funny, always trying to make a joke. He cares for Romeo, but gives him a hard time. Excuse me. Oh my gosh. I am so sorry. I should not be drinking Dr. Pepper while I'm making a video. That was super gross. I apologize. I'm like trying to think of where I was leaving off. Oh, he does not treat the nurse with the respect we would assume a young nobleman, sorry, Mercutio's a man. A young nobleman, we would assume a young nobleman would give to a woman in public. So he's a little rude. So once they're privately speaking, what warning does the nurse give Romeo? What does the nurse warning reveal about her? Explain. So the nurse warns Romeo not to lie or be dishonest with Juliet. Basically because Juliet doesn't deserve it, because she's like a good girl and she's sweet and she doesn't deserve to be mistreated, right? And like tells him that straight up. So what does that reveal about her? This reveals her deep love for Juliet. She didn't have to say that. She could have just been the messenger, but she wants to make sure that Juliet is treated correctly, treated right, kindly. Where are Romeo and Juliet to be married? So in Friar Lawrence's cell, which is like the interior room of his church. What excuse is Juliet to give for going to Friar Lawrence's cell? That she's going to go, needs to go to church to go to confession, right? Shrift is the word that she uses. So what man does the nurse believe Juliet should marry? Why? She tells Romeo that Paris is the better choice because he is the family's choice and the right choice. So how does Romeo plan to get into Juliet's window? With a ladder that his servant will take to the nurse.